Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nagasa from Sanyii Academy. Today I'm going to teach moral and citizenship education, chapter 2, lesson 7, about Kant's categorical imperative. If you are new for this channel, please start by subscribing and liking and with the video. And if you are already a member to Sanyii Academy, please start by liking, commenting, and sharing the video. You can also follow Sanyii Academy by these listed social media platforms and be member to Sanyii Academy. And don't forget, please, to subscribe, help Sanyii Academy grow and have impact everywhere. Thank you for your cooperation. Having said, just I proceed to today's lesson, which is about Kant's categorical imperative. In the previous time, we start to look at approach to ethics, theoretical frameworks to understand what ethics is and to use them as a ground to make moral decisions. And from that perspective, we have seen about teleological ethics, especially as ethical egoism, psychological egoism, utilitarianism, and also non-teleological or consequential, non-consequential ethics like deontological ethics and divine command theory, also right theory. Today, from the part of deontological ethics, we are going to focus on what Immanuel Kant has said regarding categorical imperative. Basically, Immanuel Kant is one of the known German philosophers, and also he contributed much to the field of ethics, so as to help people understand his perspective from deontological. Immanuel Kant was born in 1724 and died in 1804, and he is identified with the moral theory known as deontology. He is a founding father of deontological thought or philosophical theory. He opposed to the idea that the outcome of the action could determine its moral worth. He objected and opposed the utilitarian approach that says rightness and wrongness of an action is determined by the consequence it produces, the benefit or the harm it causes. Contrary to that, Immanuel Kant presented his objection that it is not the consequence of the action that determines the rightness and wrongness of an action. Rather, it is the appropriateness or the correctness of the action that determines, he said. His emphasis is on the correctness of the action, regardless of the possible benefits or harm it might produce. He said, we should not focus on the consequence that the action produces as a baseline or determinant factor for the rightness or wrongness of an action. Rather, we have to focus whether that action itself is right, whether that action itself is correct, than focusing on the product it produces. Deontologists argue that there are some moral obligations which are absolutely binding, no matter what consequences are produced. According to deontological ethicists and theorists, there are certain obligations that we are absolutely responsible to respond to what they requires. We are absolutely abiding by those obligations for the best moral decision making. And there are some moral obligations that we can break, but there are some that we have to bound by. They say a contest duty-based theory is emphasizes on a single principle of duty. This theory, his duty-based theory, emphasizes on single theory that focuses on the principle of duty. Duty is factor of consideration. It mainly focuses on that. He agreed that we have moral duties to oneself and also others. We have moral duties to ourselves for our well being and also the well being of other people. Because it is said man is social animal. As far as we are living in interactions, and social life is one of the characters and indicators of human society, then we have to have certain moral duties towards one another, and also individuals should care about their own betterment and wellness, such as developing one's talents. You have the responsibility to develop your own talent, cultivate your own knowledge, and achieve it, and keeping our promises to others. When you live among the society, you need to keep the promise that you have just pledged to others. So this is what it says. However, he argued there is a more foundational principle of duty that encompasses our particular duties. Although we have duties towards ourselves and others, which are also important, there is one foundational principle of duty that everyone has to emphasize on, and that foundational duty is the basic and the source of all other specific duties. So we have to focus on that. We should emphasize on that, he says. This duty he argued for is a single self-evident principle of reason called categorical imperative. So, according to Kant's argument, this principle of duty, which is the source of other specific duties, is a single in its number and also self-evident. It is self-evident. That means there is no other principle of duty that may cause it to happen. It is already self-evident. A categorical imperative simply mandates an action irrespective of one's personal desires, such as you ought to do X. Categorical imperative does not give room for personal desires and preferences. In this duty-based theory, categorical imperative, you are not given room to look for your own desires, no matter what may it causes. Rather, you have to emphasize on that single and self-evident principle of duty that is your responsibility to conform and implement that duty to make your action right or determinant. This is what he says. This is what he talks. Can't believe that nothing was good in itself except the goodwill. According to him, nothing on this earth is good except the goodwill or a goodwill. Any action that you do, any benevolent services you give to your friends and needy peoples, whatever you may cause or contribute, does not have the character of goodness unless that thing is caused by your own goodwill, irrespective of your desires and interests. Intelligence, judgment, and all other facets of human personality are perhaps good, certainly halfly good, and desirable also. We need to just have these all. Intelligence, we need to be intelligent. We need to have fair judgment, and also we need to experience something good, which is also an important for our wellness and wellness of others. They are partly good, but not absolutely good and desirable, but only if the will that make use of them is good. If you have intelligence, judgment, and other facets of human quality, that is good, partly. But if that is not caused by goodwill, still it is not good. So that is what he said. We are going to focus on that. Will means, according to him, the uniquely human capacity to act according to the concept behind laws. He is not referring to man-made laws here, he is referring to natural law, the principle presumably operating in the nature. Naturally, humans are created with the law that was established in their mind, which is called moral laws. These moral laws are important in guiding a person throughout his conduct, in guiding a person throughout his movements. So, according to him, a person has will. That will is a good will. And everything that you do should be caused by that goodwill. And this goodwill will make a difference. So, the rightness and wrongness of your action is determined whether it is caused by the goodwill that is naturally established in your mind and which we call moral law. A good will, therefore, acts in accordance with nature's law, the law of nature. That is the law that requires you to conform to it, to implement it. Because natural law is not written in the paper, you cannot find it. Natural laws are written in our mind in the form of moral laws. Instantly, when you see something bad, you refer, it is not good. That is the law that was established in your mind. So, according to him, when we adhere to that natural law, our actions are well justified. And the will is the ability and the capacity that you have to conform to that natural law. For him, a will could be good without qualification only if it always had in view one principle, whether the maxim of its action could be become a universal law. So categorical imperative want you to act in a way your action become a universal law. You should think that when you are conformed to that will and conform to natural law, which was established naturally in your mind, then you are doing it to make it natural law or part of the universal law. So, a good will, if that has a thinking in itself that whenever a person acts, take action and conforming to his principles, duty, then acting as that action is universal, part of universal law. This one categorical imperative, this universal command, all commanders of duty could be derived. So this is the one when you act to the maxim of your action could produce universal law, then it is categorical imperative. So other duties and commands are going to be derived from this universal law. Kant's categorical imperative states that we should act in such a way that the general rule governing our action could be universal law. So whenever you act in that sense, you have to emphasize that whatever you act is could become a universal law. Otherwise, that is not. So his appeal to logical consistency, not to consequences. He is focusing on logical consistency because the law of logic is what governs everyone. The law of logic determines the success of your thinking and conforming to natural law, the law of uh, reasoning that is placed in your mind. So when we are conforming to that law, we are applying the law that was already put in our mind in the form of moral law and applying reason to justify our action. This is what he says. Kant gives unnecessary version or formulations of the categorical imperative. When a person is formulating categorical imperative, at least there should be three things, three versions. Number one, categorical imperative is based on the idea that there are certain objective ethical rules in the world. So he says there are ethical rules that are objective and is uh, everyone is applying and everyone believes and accepting and also applicable to everywhere and every time. This is the first argument. The second one is this categorical imperative is heavily reliant or dependent on his idea that all people are fundamentally capable of reasoning in the same manner and on the same level. Because he say humans are naturally given the capacity just to reason on the same manner and also at the same level. So they can conform with the categorical imperative, which is a single principle of duty. And certainly, this categorical imperative focuses more on intent and action itself, are the opposed to the consequentialist focus of utilitarianism. So it does not emphasize on the consequence. Rather, it emphasizes on the intention, the motivation, the reason why you act. So that convinces a person whether he is doing for the fulfillment of moral laws or not. These are three reasons he mentioned for the formulation of categorical imperative. On the other hand, there is hypothetical imperative, tell us which means best achieve our ends. This hypothetical imperative is the opposite and the contrary of um, categorical imperative that says when we act, we have to be selective and focus on our preferences. We should look which best means could suit to our interests or which one is more suitable than others. So we have choice in hypothetical um, imperative. As the name itself indicates, we are having options, but in categorical imperative, we don't have options. Only you have to do X. For example, if you want to be well paid, then you have to study hard and graduate. So the best way is to learn and then you will be will employed. If you want to get something, you have to follow someone, some way, some means. That is what we call hypothetical imperative. Kant considered they do not, however, tell us which index we should choose, although the best measures are advisable in hypothetical imperative. We are not given room to choose the best end. But when you come to Kant's categorical imperative, he considers the right superior to the good. Here, he is trying to identify the difference between right and good. Naturally, humans are more attracted to what is good than right. We don't want to even think about rightness sometimes because we focus on what is good. Something is good doesn't mean it is right, and but something right can be good. So his focus is on what is right than good, because good is sometimes morally irrelevant. For example, lying is good just to save your life, but it's not right. So telling the truth is right, but it may cost your life. That is why we are living in a world of lies and doing something wrong and accepting that wrong as something good. In Kant's view, a person cannot decide whether conduct is right or moral through empirical means. Empirical, physically, or through practice, you cannot just determine and decide whether conduct is right or wrong. You cannot judge the rightness of a person's conduct through its product. He need to, or he's trying to emphasize and stress on the wrongness of focusing on the consequence and the means. So such judgment must be reached a priori using poor practical reasons. Unless we apply pure practical reasons, then we can comprehend and decide the rightness and wrongness of an action. And empirical things or the consequence practice does not help us to reach on the conclusion some conduct is right or acceptable. For example, killing a thief might be considered as good among the society, but taking his life is not right because we are not authorized to take lives, and it is not right also. So there are different arguments that come before what it what is just consequentialist type of thinking. But this categorical imperative does say that action should be implemented on the principle of single and self-evident principle of duty. Reason can determine the principle according to which all ends can be determined as moral. So, the only way that we can determine the morality of an action is through reason. So, this is what he is advising those who adhere to the categorical imperative philosophy to take reason, pure practical reason, as a means to analyze the rightness and wrongness of an action. This fundamental principle of moral reason is known as categorical imperative, we have said already. Pure practical reason dictates that what ought to be done without reference to empirical contingent factors. So it is dictating us this categorical imperative or pure practical reasons dictate a person what ought to be done, not what we prefer to do. Good is what we prefer. Right is sometimes what we not do not prefer. I hope many people do not want to have something right. They want to have something good. That is why the world is messing up of these things, and why corruptors are people are being corrupted, and something wrong, something unacceptable is repeatedly done. So, moral questions are determined independent of reference to particular subject posing them. So, when we are analyzing and also determining about morality and immorality of actions and questions, then we have to detach our questions from the person who acted or the person who did it. Because morality is determined by the pure practical reason rather than particular empirical or sensus factors. If you base your judgment and decision on your senses, your feeling, and also some practical available evidences, then that could be not pure practical reason. Rather, you have to focus on logic and reasoning capability of a person to act that way, the way the law requires, moral law. This moral universalism that he talks, moral universalism that he says, had a wide social impact in the field of legal and political concepts of human rights, because human rights and equalities are moral rights. So they are influenced by this philosophical thinking and had implications. That is why we say human rights are universal, objective, equal, inalienable, and also so many features are attached to them. His theory hinged on the autonomy and his formulation of categorical imperatives. That means a person should be autonomous when forming this universal principle. He should not be forced by someone else or situation or by his own feeling or senses. Rather, he should depend on the pure practical reason which can help him formulate this categorical imperative. So he should be free of any influence or should be autonomous. He believed that unless a person freely and willingly makes a choice, their action has no moral value. For example, if you want to kill a person, assume you want to kill Mr. X. And when you are going to kill him on your way, you fear that you will be in custody for killing that person. So, and also you thought that he has children to care and a wife to care. So, thinking for his children as well as his wife, and also the possible consequence you are going to face if you kill him, then you cease to kill him. You avoid yourself from killing that person. So according to that person, that this categorical imperative theory, your action is not right because it is not initiated by the goodwill, which is good in itself. Rather, you are living or letting that person live because you feared the possible consequence and also for his family. Autonomy allows us to be self creative. And when it comes to our values and morality, so when you personally, autonomously, morally, and reasonably decide to act that action, it is morally right because You are conforming to the universal principle and also making that action as if it becomes universal law. Autonomy is one's own beliefs, independence, and government. When you believe in yourself, in your values, when you feel independent and make independently decisions, and when you govern your actions and behaviors, acting without regard for any other person, without any help. Conversely, heteronomy is the opposite of autonomy, is acting under the influence or pressure of someone else and allows for an individual to consistently place blame outside of the self. You might have come across a person who say, I did this because Mr. X forced me to do. That means you did that action and still blaming others for the responsibility. This is what we call heteronomy. Kant believed that each individual is rational and capable of making free choices, thereby relies on the autonomous thinking. So this is a kind of philosophical thinking that we are capable of just producing our own choices and also depending on our rational decision making capacity. And this is the feature and the characteristics of independent person, autonomous person. Every man, if using reason when looking at moral dilemmas, would agree with what he called the categorical imperative. So a person, if that person or Mr. X uses, or if every man uses reason, simply he can agree with the moral aspect of categorical imperative. So a person cannot be just ignoring his categorical imperative. But people who are not using reason could disregard or oppose his claims, according to him. Kant taught that all people could come to understand and agree with it after autonomous reflections. So, according to him, every person, all people, could come to understand and agree with his argument if they're autonomous. Today, we see so many people under the influence of so many things. People are under influence of their parents, under influence of religion, under influence of politics, authorities, and so many uh, things. So, if people are free, they can choose to side with categorical imperative because it is the single and self-evident principle of duty and also caused and comprehended by the pure practical reasoning. A core aspect of this theory is the concept of intent. So, what makes the action right or wrong is the intention behind that action. It was the matter that to him to look at the intent for which a person make that action. He concluded that a moral proposition that is true must be one that is not tied to any particular conditions. So you should not be tied, your decision, moral proposition that you make should not be tied to conditions. It should be beyond the conditions, including the identity of a person making the moral deliberation. So it should be out of your identity. Rather, it should be free of any, or it should be good in itself. It should not be taken as baseline because you are good, or you both your action does not make that action good. Rather, if it is caused by the goodwill, which is good in itself, then the morality or acceptability or truth of this action is not dependent on the identity of the maker. Similarly, moral maxim must imply absolute necessity that must be disconnected from the particular physical details surrounding the proposition and could be applied to any rational being. So, these say the moral maxim that we are looking for this action should be absolute in absolute sense and also should be disconnected from any deep physical details and empirical propositions and should be applied by a rational person who has the ability to produce pure practical reason, and this makes it acceptable. according to him. Generally, in today's lesson, we have seen about Kant's categorical imperative, which is a duty-based theory. And this categorical imperative says there is one foundational principle of duty that everyone has to apply, and this is universal and can only be comprehended by pure practical reason. And the main driving force behind this is good intent, or the intent of a person, or the goodwill of a person. I hope you have got very important insight to this Kant's categorical imperative. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this video. And also, don't forget to hit the notification button just to get notified every time new video arrives on Sanyii Academy. Thank you for your patience. God bless you. Till next time. Bye bye.